They say he has no face, no soul. The Slender Man, they call him, a creature born from fear and silence. I first heard the legend in the local library, buried in a crumbling book no one dared open. It described him as a tall, unnaturally thin figure, usually in a dark suit. His featureless face is the canvas for your worst fears, reflecting your terrors back at you. They claim he doesn't walk. He glides, his long limbs stretching impossibly, merging into the darkness. But the most terrifying part? He doesn't just kill you. He takes your mind first, planting static whispers in your head, driving you mad until you beg for an end. And then he appears, a shadow between the trees, his tendrils snaking toward you. His power isn't limited by distance or logic. He transcends space, emerging where you feel safest. I thought it was just a story until I saw him. In the window of my bedroom, his stare burning into my brain with shock and dread. I haven't slept since. He doesn't just haunt the woods. He haunts you. It started with Sarah Wilkes. She was 13, a quiet girl who loved drawing in her notebook beneath the old oak tree at the park. She vanished one autumn evening, her backpack left open at the tree's base. The only clue was her sketchbook, pages filled with unsettling drawings of a faceless man with impossibly long arms. The town erupted into panic when her mutilated body was found days later, deep in the woods. The police report never released the full details, but rumors spread her limbs twisted at unnatural angles, her face frozen in an expression of pure terror. And on the bark of the nearest tree, a symbol was carved, a circle with an X through it. Witnesses came forward, claiming to have seen something before her disappearance, a shadowy figure lurking between the trees. Most dismissed it as hysteria until another child, Marcus Brown, disappeared weeks later under identical circumstances. I remember the press conference. A detective addressed the crowd, his voice trembling.
We're dealing with something beyond explanation.
That's when I saw him in the back of the room, his tall, dark figure blending into the shadows. The whispers in my head began again. The killings escalated. The victims weren't limited to children anymore. Teens, adults, even animals were found dismembered and defiled, their faces etched with silent screams. Survivors, if you could call them that, were never the same. Most were institutionalized, babbling about tall shadows and endless whispers. Mia, a high school junior, escaped Slenderman's grasp but wasn't spared his wrath. Her once lively green eyes became dull, her personality shattered. She painted her room black, claiming the light invited him. I interviewed her once, and her words still haunt me.
He's inside me now, in my dreams, in my mind. You can't kill the shadows.
One night, I followed the trail of rumors to the forest, armed with a flashlight and a notebook. My breath froze as I spotted him, standing still as a statue among the trees. His featureless face turned toward me. My heart stopped. A noise static, piercing, and invasive filled my ears. I ran, but his figure stretched impossibly long, his tendrils brushing my back. I didn't sleep for weeks. We were 5. Jason, the skeptic. Maria, the fearless leader. Kyle, the tech wizard. Elena, the psychic, and me, the reluctant chronicler. United by grief and desperation, we vowed to end him. We pored over every piece of evidence we'd gathered, books, fragmented notes, and witness testimonies, hoping to make sense of it all. Elena, shaped by her haunted past, was convinced she could feel his presence. Her eyes darted toward corners and shadows, as if seeing something we could not. Jason, the eternal skeptic, dismissed her claims with biting sarcasm, though his bravado couldn't hide the tension in his voice. One stormy night, armed with candles, runes, and Kyle's makeshift EMF detector, we ventured into the woods. The atmosphere was suffocating, the air thick with a static hum. The whispers started softly, then grew deafening. Jason froze mid-step, his eyes wide.
Guys, he's here.
A shadow materialized behind him. Maria screamed, pulling him away, but it was too late. Tendrils wrapped around him, dragging him into the void. The circle with an X appeared on a tree where Jason once stood. We ran, our ritual half finished, his static enclosing and impending, vibrating through the forest. We returned the next night, unwilling to abandon Jason's memory. This time, the static began before we reached the woods. Elena clutched her head, her voice a desperate plea.
He's already inside. He's already won.
As we pushed deeper toward the trees, we came upon a horrifying sight. Jason, one of the group who had disappeared the night before, was stretched out and impaled on a tree, his lifeless body swaying gently with the wind. Panic gripped us, but before we could react, Maria pointed to something in the distance. Slender Man, his tall, faceless figure blending with the gloomy fog and eerie stillness. We steadied ourselves, gripping whatever we could use as weapons, but before we could even blink, he was there, right in front of us. Without warning, black tendrils shot out from his back, wrapping around Kyle and Maria. Their screams filled the night as they were lifted into the air, the tendrils crushing the life out of them before violently snapping and dropping their bodies on the ground. Elena and I turned to run, but an overwhelming force rooted us in place. We were paralyzed, unable to move, as Slender Man began to approach us slowly, his faceless head tilting slightly as if savoring our fear. Suddenly, Elena's eyes rolled back and her body convulsed. I tried to look away, but my gaze was locked on his featureless face. The void began to pull me in, every second stretching into eternity. We were trapped, not in the shadows, but in his endless, suffocating stare. Then, nothing.